And now, it's time for the Nailsin Ratings. Witty commentary by me, Mr. Nailsin, on all things concerning life, culture, entertainment, and whatever else the cat may drag in. So, Fear the Walking Dead is back on. This is the spin-off of the popular The Walking Dead series. And so far, when it started off, of course it was different from the other series because it's showing you how the plague broke out and what happened to society falling apart and all that, and how fast it went and all that. And that's what made it different from the other series. But now that they're full on into the zombies have taken over, it's the same show, just a really watered down version. Because, a copy is still just a copy, and pretty much makes it unnecessary. There's really no story to tell here. Even the material they covered in this first new episode, which was all about Nick, the young drug addict guy, who in this kind of covered material he's already covered. It explained a little bit of what happened to his girlfriend there in the first episode, where you see she's the first person you see that's turned into a zombie, and he sees this, and he's, ooh. And now we get a little bit of her backstory and all that, which is a little bit interesting, I suppose, but not enough to really win this show over. And then there's a really bad scene in there. There's these crooked guys, and there's always these crooked guys who run around taking advantage of the situation. So there's a bunch of guys running around just killing zombies and living people. For the hell of it, apparently. They didn't really seem to be stealing anything or anything. And then, once again, karma's a bitch, and the zombies get the drop on these guys. And they get the drop on them in kind of a stupid way. And the guy, he seems to see Nick, and then suddenly he's scared. Oh, and he's struggling with his bullets, and he can't load his gun in time. Oh, and his two other guys just stand there kind of stupid looking, and the zombies get him, and he dies. It's really bad. It's just a bad scene. They should have come up with some other way for this to work. But, so that was really dropping the ball, which I'm surprised because the crew that does these shows is usually pretty good. But again, even if they had managed to, hit everything right, it's still pointless, because this is sort of just a different guy doing what other characters have already done in the previous show. And again, what's the point of this? It says, well, it takes place on the West Coast, and now they're in Mexico, and so we haven't seen zombies in Mexico, but it doesn't matter. And of course they're going to run into weird people who do strange and bad things. And yeah, we've already seen that. So, what the show really needed to do to differentiate itself from Walking Dead was to make the virus the main character. And by that, explore its origins, find out what it's really about, and maybe there's no one who can really solve the problem, but you could kind of lead that up to it. There were scenes there in the early, the first season there, especially with the character Strand, who was this mystery man, and there's this big mystery about he seemed to know things, And it's never really explained why he was locked up where Nick was locked up. If you've watched the show, you know what I'm talking about. Because he wasn't sick or anything. They were putting up people who were potentially sick and could, spread the virus and all that. That's what the military was trying to control. But Strand wasn't. He seemed fine, and I don't know what he was doing in there. So the only other conclusion you could make was that, well, they locked him up because they knew him and he was in on something. But no, that wasn't the case at all. And his big secret was that he had a boyfriend in Mexico, which I don't see what the big deal about that was. So, and apparently he's been this con man type guy or whatever, but he fell in love with this guy and whatever and all that. But so there's really nothing to Strand, not really. And of course there's hints that Madison, the mother of Nick, and that she's got some dark past. So I guess she was a drug addict too, because they're kind of throwing that in there, that she understands Nick's problems and all that. So, but that's all very interesting and stuff, but it's just another soap opera tacked on to The Walking Dead. And, they could have just made these characters in the regular series if you wanted to, because having a whole other series it's not necessary. So, in order to justify this series, I suggest they rethink that and go after the virus. It's probably a little late now. They missed some opportunities here, but they really should. Unfortunately, I happen to know that creator of Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman, gave a brief interview before the show came out, and he said, yeah, the idea of doing a story about a bunch of scientists trying to find a cure for the disease, that bores me. So he's too lazy to take the challenge of figuring out how to make that into something. No, he's just going to redo what he's already done, and that's a bit of a problem. So they got a good cast. They got some good actors there. There's some good atmospherics here and there. And it's sad because it's going to get wasted. I'm afraid that show is going to die, and it's not going to come back. So at this point, I don't know how to pull for it. I'm going to keep tuning in, but I don't see much of a future for it as it is now. So I suggest they do reconsider making the virus character in the show. So 2 stars for good atmospherics. Well, maybe even a 3rd star because I do like the actors and some of their performances here. But I can't give it the full 5 because, like I said, it's just a copy of Walking Dead. And well, why take the copy when you can have the best? And that was the Nailsin Ratings! The views and opinions expressed by Mr. Nailsin are his and his alone, and do not express those of other entities that he may or may not be involved with. So any complaints and or comments should be sent to @Mr. Nailsin on Twitter, where they'll be promptly ignored and or blocked.